It really is a lot of fun, but it is so much easier if you know a few things and have a few things in advance. I want to thank Ruthie Lacey, who taught me everything I know. And the first thing she taught me was that you have to take everything with you except the kitchen sink. And I almost did that today coming to Sumter. But I want to tell you about some things that will really make it easier when you get started. The first is that you need something to help you hold the flowers unless you just have a very narrow necked vase. And so there are several things you can do. These are pin cushions. And they come in different sizes. And some people, my husband loves to use them. They're very sharp, and so you can just stick the stem of the flower down in there, and it will hold it very steadily. And so, this is kind of an old-fashioned way of doing things. The other thing you can use is what is called wet floral foam, which is kind of a tongue twister. The brand that most people use is called Oasis. And you can get it, Oasis, you can go to a floral specialty store, and you can buy a box of it. And I do that. I buy it in the normal brick size. This one's been cut in two, but this is kind of the normal brick size. And then I also buy it in the big size because maybe you want to do something in a punch bowl. Well, this just saves you so much time. It is so easy to cut. I have a knife here somewhere. And I'll show you how easy it is to cut. But if you don't have a knife, you can even just use a pair of scissors. So easy to cut. You put it in water, and you don't submerge it in water. You let it float and sink to the bottom. And the bubbles will stop coming out, and then it's ready for you to use. One trick with this is that if you are going to use it in a container like this, first of all, this container has a plug in the bottom. So I could use it for fill it up with potting soil and put a plant in it. But it's got a plug in the bottom. Don't believe it. It will leak. And so that's why you need to go and get contractor black bags. And anytime you're using something that might leak, and anything that's like a pail or that's been welded at the bottom is going to leak, or things that are wood. And so put the contractor bag in it and then start putting your Oasis in. Oasis, suppose you've got a nice big block, and that would almost fill up this container. And you say, oh, well, I just need a little piece for the top. Don't put the little piece on the top. Always put the big piece on the top, and I'll tell you why. Because it works by capillary action. So if you have the big piece on the bottom, you have to add water above the height of the big piece for this piece to be able to take up water. And that's going to fill this thing up so much you're hardly going to be able to move around with it. So go ahead and put the smaller piece on the bottom, the big piece on the top, and then you only have to add this much water. A lot less water. It'll be much easier for you to work with, and it won't be so messy. Wet floral foam. Suppose you have something like this and you don't want to see all the stems. If you have aspidistra in your yard, you can put a piece of aspidistra down in it and let that cover up most of your stems. Or they make something that's the same thing, and this is called Floral Wrap. And you can buy this, and it looks kind of like variegated aspidistra, and you can put it inside it. You can put it on the outside and wrap a ribbon around it if you want to, or you can put it on the inside. Either way you want to, if you don't want to just have to look at a bunch of stems. Okay, so moving right on. This is called Floral Tape, and this is the larger size. I prefer the smaller size, but sometimes you have to wrap things together. And there's one that's half this size that I prefer, but this is fine. It's sticky, and it's sticky even when it's wet, because everything gets wet when you're doing this. The trick is when you are cutting a piece off, and I never have time for my scissors, you have to use your teeth. You have to give a smile like some Hollywood movie star, because if it gets on your lip, it'll pull the skin off your lip. So you have to go and do this giant smile and do like that, okay? Do not keep your mouth together when you do it, or you'll be very sorry, and you'll have to get chapstick and worry about your mouth a lot. Okay, wire, I have a lot of different kinds, thicknesses of wire, but wire is very important because there's always some time when you need it. And I use Felco pruners. Everybody has their own brand that they like. Mine have swivel handles. My husband is very kind about keeping it sharp for me. Felco is made for people who do flower arrangements because there's a little tiny notch at the bottom of the blade, and that is there just for you to cut wire. I also have sticks with wire already on the top. All these can be purchased at specialty floral shops or sometimes at your craft store. I have different size sticks. Some of them are just barbecue skewers, and then sometimes you can find some in color. I have a lot of different sizes. I tell you why these are important. If you are using daffodils, things from the Narcissus group, guess what? They have a hollow stem. And so you have to put this in it. Otherwise, when you try to push it down into the oasis, it's going to break the stem up. So you just run that up the middle of it. Amaryllis are the same way. So if you ever get something with a hollow stem, you're going to have to run a dowel or small skewer up into it. And then sometimes you even have to take your tape, particularly with an amaryllis, and again, Hollywood smile, wrap that around it. Guess what amaryllis do once they're cut? This is so cool. The stem starts unraveling and curling up. So if you don't wrap it at the bottom, it's going to start curling up, and it won't stay where it's supposed to. All righty. So I think, rubber bands. You just never know when you need a rubber band. So I always have rubber bands. The other things you can have, sometimes in your toolkit, it's nice to have a corkscrew and perhaps some Band-Aids and also some bug spray. But I would start assembling your own little toolbox with the tools of the trade, and that will make it so much easier when you get started. Also, part of making flower arrangements is covering up your mechanics. When you finish, you don't want anybody to see the oasis or see all the little things you've done. And so you want to cover it up a little bit by tweaking it. And so I go out and collect Spanish moss, which is a living plant in the pineapple family. It's flowering. And I keep it at the house on a fence around a dog pen. It's perfectly happy there. It does not have bugs in it unless you pick it up off the ground. But if you're worried about it, don't put it in the oven or something like that. If you're worried about it having bugs in it, just put it in the freezer for a minute and it'll be fine, and then take it out and you can keep it hanging on that fence and it'll be perfectly happy. I also, when I'm going out to the big dump where it's really sandy, I find reindeer moss, which is a lichen, and I have it in several places in the yard just sitting on the ground. It gets real dry when it's dry, but then when you need to use it, you just moisten it, put it in water, and it's perfectly flexible, and you can use that and tuck it all around, and you get a real difference in color. So it kind of depends on what you're doing and how much variation in color you want in your arrangement. All right, so I think we've talked about all the mechanics that we need to talk about. So I will take just a moment and move these things and bring our flowers in a little closer. It was so much fun when Glenna was taking me around because some of the things that she showed me were like from the 16th, 17th century, and then, we went all the way through. I think the most recent thing she showed me was probably from the arts and crafts movement in the 1940s, or maybe a little bit later. But I'm thinking, art always evolves and there are lots of changes. And since this was for the Columbia Museum of Art's Art Blossom Show, I said, well, I should have a container that is made by an artist. And this is made by my friend Jerry Burdick. I've been collecting her work for many years, and she actually has a piece in the State Arts Collection. I think we're going to show you a picture of that. And this is from the Edisto series, Edisto Beach, and it's got a nice organic feel to it, which I thought was kind of fun. And the inside of it, you can see I've already worked on my oasis, and I've got the shorter pieces at the bottom with the taller pieces on the top. But I wanted y'all to see that the inside of this has a very different texture. So it reminds me of a seashell. You know how a seashell on the outside is all crusty sometimes, and then you open it up and it's very beautiful and smooth on the inside. So that's why I thought this would be a really fun piece for us to use for our arrangement today. A very organic piece made by a South Carolina artist. What could be more appropriate? So then you have to start putting things in. And I usually start with some of my larger flowers. And I want to thank Chris Kessinger at Specialty Cut Flowers, who let me piggyback on an order so that I could get some things that wouldn't otherwise have been available for me. He was very kind. And so when flowers come from the florist, the first thing you have to do is spend a couple of hours cleaning up the flowers. I know that sounds silly, but they usually have just too much stuff going on them. So I sat down yesterday for several hours and took thorns off the roses and removed a lot of the foliage. Everything that I got, these beautiful ranunculus had foliage all up and down, but the foliage was no longer attractive. Ranunculus foliage just isn't that pretty. And so everything that I got, even these wonderful things that I found growing through the fence in Sumter, this wonderful spirea, I had to spend a lot of time not only cleaning it off, but actually removing some of the green leaves so that you would see the flowers and not be overwhelmed by all the foliage. So it just takes a long time. Be prepared. If you just use them as they come, which sounds like you could, it's going to be too dense and too green and too compact, and you won't be happy with your final arrangement. Generally, you start with some of your larger flowers, and I'm going to start with these garden roses, and they've got some extra buds on them, and I just don't think the buds add much to them. So I'm going to remove the buds and probably put about 3 of them in on 2 sides. I like to cluster things. Remember that in a garden, the best way to plant a garden is not just to put a string, a little line of soldiers. You want to cluster your flowers, and the same philosophy and technique takes place in your flower arrangement. So I'm going to do that with these roses. And they don't have much smell, but they sure are pretty. These are garden roses that I was able to order, and they just are so much more attractive than some of those roses that just sit there like that. So we're going to have, and I'm going to try to get them at slightly different heights because that's more the way things happen in real life. Then I'm going to repeat that over on this side. Once again, I'll leave one of the buds on. We can do that. I'll leave one bud on here and make this one slightly different. Debud this one. You know, and I can take these home and put them in a little container, and over a couple of days they'll open, and then I'll have sweet little roses on my kitchen table for when we're eating supper, and that'll be nice too. When you are putting your flowers in, suppose I go, I'm going to push this in, and I go like that, and then I go, oh my goodness, I didn't want it to be that short. I want it to be taller. If I just lift it up, the bottom of my stem is no longer in contact with the oasis. And that means that if the water is a little bit lower, the capillary action will not fill that void. And so if you put something in and decide that you want to pull it out a little bit, you have to take it completely out and start an entirely new hole. Otherwise, it will not be getting watered. And you know as well as I do how incredibly critical it is to have water with flowers. Then, to hear that peonies were available. It used to be that I could grow peonies in St. Matthews, but with the differences in climate, a peony. The plants come up fine, but they don't flower for me anymore. But they had some peonies available. What a marvelous flower peonies are. It almost makes you want to move up to where it's super cold in the winter. But fortunately, you can order them from the florist and not have to be quite so drastic. So I'm going to put these in next. That's my next major group of flowers. And I've got these, beautiful, beautiful pink colors. I just can't believe how exquisite they are. And I'm again going to work in threes, which is just a good way to work. 3s and 5s, just like all the things they teach you in landscape design. Odd numbers are always the best. So let me turn this around. And I don't know why people think that this is just la-di-da kind of work, because everything that you do concerning flower arrangements is heavy. This already weighs about, I'd say, 25 pounds. Oh, you can hear it clump. So if you've got somebody to help you carry things around, be glad and fix them their favorite cake occasionally. You can actually help flowers open just by taking your hands gently and pulling them on them a little bit. And we'll have another grouping of peonies. I can take this lower leaf off. We'll have one that's a little bit taller, maybe just for fun. Let's let him be up there with one of the roses for variety. And then we'll let this fellow come out in a whole nother direction so that wherever you're looking, you'll see something pretty and colorful. Okay. And I think this fella's in the wrong spot. Again, I'm going to pull him out. And when I put him back, be sure that he goes down and is touching the oasis very well. And there we go. Okay. Oh, wonderful peonies. All right. Then I thought that it would be fun to have some blue involved in this. And this is a wonderful flower. Originon, I believe is correct. Star, isn't that pretty? And as you see, the flower in the middle is smaller, lower. And so I'm going to cut that one out because I think that's a little bit awkward. I'm going to cut this a little bit and thin it out a little bit. So I'm going to start putting some of this in. And since it's a little bit airier, I may be able to let one or two of them be a little bit higher. It's got a pretty thick stem, however. Here's another one we're going to use. And since the stem is so thick, I'm actually going to trim it down a little bit so it's easier for me to insert. And since there are 4 on that one, I'm going to go back and only leave 3. I think that works best on that particular stem. And let's get one more. Where did I have those? Well, there are more. Oh, here we go. Like I said, you got the kitchen sink, and sometimes you can't find the drain. You'll have so much stuff. Again, you can see these are pretty big, and I spent a lot of time cleaning them up already. I'm gonna thin them down, and think how much fun I'll have. I'll have all these little leftovers that I can use at home, and that'll be a lot of fun for me. Cutting the stem a little bit so that it's easier for me to insert. Again, using 3s, but not grouping them quite as much as I did the roses and the peonies. Okay, well, let's have some more color in here. And I've got, these are all kind of big. I've got some of my native azalea that's blooming now, and that's got a very different texture. Plus, the fragrance. If you don't grow the deciduous native azaleas, they're really available now. And I would encourage you to plant some in your yard. We did a show on making it grow with a really marvelous collector, Mike Creel, who worked for DNR for a long time. And he just has the most wonderful collection in the world. But again, as I say, they are very easily accessible now, easy to grow. So put some out in your yard. All of our native azaleas are deciduous, and so the flowers come before the leaves, and they're very, very conspicuous and beautiful. And they do just smell like magic. Cut that one back a little bit. And then I've got some larger ranunculus that are just exquisitely beautiful, and I think we'll repeat that beautiful yellow color. So let's fill in a little bit lower with some of these gorgeous ranunculus. Aren't they just so much fun? Look at that beautiful green center. What could be more delightful? And they certainly brighten their corner. Just eye-popping. And remember, I had the foliage that came on them. Some plants have beautiful foliage. Ranunculus foliage just isn't particularly pretty, so I just cleaned them up when they came in. Tuck them all throughout because they are just so lovely. Okay. You have to work sometimes to get something in just the right place. And again, I grouped to start with, but now I'm just being a little more scattered, which I feel like I can do with the kind of the secondary flowers, if that makes any sense. That's how I'm kind of considering these as the secondary flowers, with the roses and the peonies being the dominant ones. Get that down just a little bit more. Cut him a little bit. Alrighty. This one still has an offshoot on it, so I'll take that off. And you can see that the foliage really didn't amount to much, so I just went ahead and took it all off, as I will with that little bit that's remaining there. Let this kind of edge over the side a little bit. Let's see if we need one more in here. We're doing pretty good with that. Okay, it is that time of year, and I thought here we get a different texture. We have a lot of things that are pretty open. We have these very airy, kind of bold, these peonies and roses. These are kind of spiky. Then we have the ranunculus that are kind of tight. But then here we've got some tulips. Tulips do not have a hollow stem, so you don't have to worry about putting a stick up there behind, so to speak. You can just put them right in. If you're having trouble getting them in, if the stem feels a little bit weak, you can always take a pencil or stems from something else like this and make a hole with them so that you don't feel like you're going to be breaking them. So let's get a few tulips in. And these are kind of nice because they're falling over a little bit. They have a natural curve to them. So we'll put some of those in. If the foliage isn't pretty, just go ahead and take it off. There's going to be plenty in here by the time you finish. You can vary the height a little bit as you want to. Things don't all have to be in the same plane. But the tulips are graceful because they do have a leaning aspect to them, which I think is quite attractive. Clip, clip, snip, snip. There we go. Let's make this one a little shorter. I don't know why it helps stick your tongue out sometimes. There All right, and then we get 1 or 2 more on the back, and that's just about right because I've only got 1 or 2 left. It's nice when things work out right, isn't it? Doesn't always work that way, but certainly grateful for when it does. Okay, so get this little fella nicely down in there so he'll make good contact with the Oasis. That one actually broke a little bit, so I'm going to replace him with another one because I want him to come over the edge a little bit. All right. Now I've got a lot of things that are somewhat formal looking, and I was out and looked at some other things in the yard and had some scilla, and I like to use some yard flowers too. And the scilla is, so I'm going to put that in, and that's another color of blue that I think will be pretty, and maybe bring out the blue in that star flower a little bit because it's a little bit dark and a little bit hard to see perhaps. So this will say, oh, blue, more blue, and encourage you to pay more attention to that. And this again does not have a hollow stem, so I'm finding it pretty easy to put it in. And I may try to actually put these maybe in 3s because if you grow scilla, you know that it multiplies and you end up having bunches of it in the garden, which is quite delightful. There's nothing in the world wrong with that. So we might try to replicate the way it grows in nature, which is in bunches, in our arrangement. So let's put a little bit more over here. And I must say, with the peony, the blue of this scilla is really quite beautiful. So I'm going to put one behind one of the peonies and one in front of it. If I've still got one that's got a little bit of height to it, and I do, great. Okay, I think that this fellow is a little awkward, so I'm going to take him out. And I'm going to actually reposition this a little bit in moving it out a little bit now that things are coming together. It's a little bit off, but I kind of like that. I don't want everything to be just, absolutely perfectly in the same vein. I think we should change things around a little bit. So now I think we can actually start putting in some greenery and maybe finishing up. Greenery. I just think that our native oak leaf hydrangea, when it comes out in the spring, is the most marvelous thing. The color is unbelievable. It's just completely carefree. Look at that beautiful color. And so I got some of that, and I think it will be a beautiful way to really make this look like a spring arrangement. Don't be afraid to prune and take things off if you think that it's getting too thick. So I went out this morning and got a good bit of it, and I'm happy. It's beautiful, of course, when it blooms, but right now it's also quite beautiful just because the color is so remarkable. Let's put a little bit down in the middle so we have some color, so that everywhere you look you get some sense of it being equally distributed, in this case throughout the arrangement. Okay. And good. Still got a few more. Great. Because we need some over here. I want everybody, from whatever angle you're seeing this, we want there to be a little bit of this on view. Okay. And now I'm really pretty satisfied with this. I think the leaves that I left on the roses are just too dark, and I'm just going to reach in there and pinch them off. Bless their little hearts. Pinch, 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 because they're very dark. It was nice, healthy foliage, but it's not quite what I want. And I think now we will perhaps just tuck in some of the lichen that I got. Maybe one more piece of this. Let's see where we need a piece still. How about that? Right there. Oh, by that beautiful tulip. That just worked perfectly. So let me clean up a little bit. So I can see my nose in front of my face. And get some of my lichen that I have here. I think this color will be lots of fun, and I'm going to start tucking it in so that you won't see any of the oasis or anything. And if you get close enough, you'll still be able to see a little bit of the beautiful inside of what Jerry did, that seashell-like texture that the inside of this, I think, pretty fun container has. I think I've got a little bit more of this. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness for the wonderful sandy soil on the way to the big dump in St. Matthews, where my friend Linda is always so nice to us when we go out there. Okay. And I just need a little bit of this in the middle, and it looks like I've used all I have. So I'm just going to put a little bit of Spanish moss down in the middle so that you won't see the little bit of oasis down in there. And it also just adds, actually, a little more texture and fun. I don't mind that at all. Really, yeah. All right, so give me a second. I'm going to try to clean up so that you can see how this is going to look. Hold on. Well, since I don't have a teleprompter or cue cards or a script, of course I forgot to tell you something. So I forgot to water. So you want to put your finger down in here and slowly, slowly, slowly add water until it gets to the height that you want. Do it slowly, because all of a sudden you'll think that it's not doing anything, and then it will start spilling over the edge. So slowly add water, and check that every day. These little bottles are good for that purpose because they've got a top on them. And then, of course, at the museum and just like in your home, they spend a lot of time deciding what should be in what gallery. And we do the same thing. We try to have things that relate to each other in our home. And I thought it might be fun in this case, since I felt like there was a lot that had to do with the sea with this vase, and a lot that had to do with water in the pictures that that Glenna shared with me from a lady fixing her hair at the table with flowers, in the middle of the day. Imagine having time to fix your hair and somebody else did the flowers for you. To the goddess who was weeping, and then the wonderful arts and crafts movement things that had a live oak in it with the Spanish moss, but a lot of things that just remind, which of course you think it's being in the Louisiana places and swampy places. So I have a oyster bowl, an oyster dish from that Jerry also made. That's one of my favorite things. I live for South Carolina oysters. I do not eat oysters from anywhere else except South Carolina because our oysters are the very best. But then I had some mussel shells that were a little bit more artistic looking than oyster shells. And so I brought some of those along as well. And I had a scarf that I thought I tried to fix it so it kind of seemed like the billowy sea. As I do a lot of stopping on the side of the road. That's where I get a lot of things. And so I've been looking for a stick. I've really been looking for a stick. And fortunately, Diane Baker at the Riverbank Zoo and Botanical Garden had been collecting some rhododendron. They had a little bit of rhododendron in an area down on that beautiful slope that they have down towards the river that she was collecting, and she gave me this marvelous piece. So I'm going to add this to our arrangement for height and drama. So I have to find a place to make it. There we go. It's going in. Some of the very best things you find are roadside finds. So I'm always stopping and looking for things. And I stopped the other day to look at a native crabapple, which was past its prime. But I found this wonderful surprise. And that is a native honeysuckle. And it was, I couldn't see it from the road. If I hadn't stopped the car and gotten out, I wouldn't have known it was there. This is our native woodbine, a beautiful honeysuckle with, so I'm going to clean it up a little bit. And this is one that you can very easily grow in your yard. The hummingbirds love it. And I think almost everybody loves it. And I thought it would be fun to perhaps twine it around our beautiful stick that Diane Baker so kindly gave me. So let's see if we can make this work. Because it is a twining vine. That's exactly how it makes its way into the air so that it can photosynthesize and be part of nature. So we're going to twine it around and let that beautiful flower show. There's a little bit of dead there. We'll take off, and I think we've got a little bit left that we can put on this piece here. And now we have what I think is I hope you will think is an arrangement worthy of art blossoms, and one that perhaps will give you some ideas of how to do arrangements at your house. Mainly have a good time and enjoy it. Thank you so much.